Alright, let me go in car here. Just got like a quick 10 lap instructional before I died. But just kind of give you guys some reference points. I'll leave it up on this screen so you can see throttle inputs and brake inputs and stuff. So the line here is kind of interesting. You actually you definitely diamond turn 1, so you enter low, kind of drift high, and then exit low. Turn 3 and 4, you can kind of do the same thing. It's just not as extreme. It's more of a mid to high kind of entry. You'll see, usually this is, keep in mind, some fresh tires, but use like the markers on the wall. So you can see I'm lifting and only applying a little bit of brake, entering the turn here, but you'll see I enter it almost down towards the white line, and then I'm going to drift out towards the wall. So apex down to here, and you can see I don't have any throttle or brake input at this point in time. I drifted out to the wall. You can see kind of 50-60% throttle, and then you're just kind of keeping it there throughout the turn. And then as you're going to do a second apex, you might be getting off the throttle a little bit, especially if you get more laps on your tires, to make sure you hit that bottom apex. Otherwise, you're going to pancake the wall off of 2. And I didn't get all the way to the bottom here. There's going to be instances where I get it all the way to the bottom, but you want to exit low and then take it back out to the wall. Entering 3-4 here, there's a couple points you can use. The safest and the one I aim for most is you can see where that wall kind of starts to go out towards the wall. You can kind of lift and start braking there. And I actually hold the brake a fair amount of time here to make sure the car gets set. A very common thing to happen is not use enough brake and get it wound down enough, and you just like slide up into the outside wall. And turn 3 and 4 particularly, the car gets very unstable when you get it up into the wall, and when you kind of rip it down out of the wall, it almost wants to spin out, so you gotta be really careful of that. But I'll go through this turn here. I'll let a few laps play out. Kind of provide some insight as it plays, so kind of pointing things out. Only a little bit of brake there, and similar to the last turn, you're kind of 50% throttle for a lot of the turn, and wait until you get off the turn to fully commit to it. Apex low, drift high, 50-60% throttle, then lifting a little bit to help get it turned. Ride the brake, drifting quite a ways before I even bother getting back into the throttle. It's going to be race pace. Qualifying, you've got to really be on the edge. You throw it in really aggressively. Not a lot of all throttle time. It's definitely on the a razor's edge for a qualifying lap. I'm getting pretty close to the outside wall here. The high line's kind of the preferred line. Lets you carry a lot of momentum. Keeping it to the bottom, you just don't carry as much momentum, but obviously running up towards the wall, there's an inherent risk of getting up into the wall. So you gotta kind of balance it a little bit. Passing here is not easy at all. You almost got to treat it like it's a road course. You're racing the track. It's the cliche, you're racing the track, not the drivers. That's the epitome of this track. If two people are trying to race each other very hard, something that'll sometimes happen is the back driver may get a run on somebody off of 4 there and get under somebody entering turn 1, and say the car that's low's only got like half a car under the car on the outside. Truthfully, the car on the outside just needs to lift at that point and let that pass happen, because if you try and enter that turn side by side, more times than not, y'all are going to come together and there's going to be a wreck. Because, I mean, you can enter high here as well and really follow along the outside wall, but that's a very fine thing to do, and I've seen people enter extremely low, like car almost completely on the apron, and drift down, kind of do like a slide job. I mean, it's not something I would really recommend, because it can go poorly pretty quickly. And you can see I'm entering a little bit higher in the turns now, but then I'm really getting off the throttle and cutting it back down here. Because that wall off of turn 2 definitely will jump out and get you. And you hit it once or twice, it's not too bad, but you hit it more than that, it starts damaging the car, and then you got other issues. It's hard to go this entire race, though, without getting into the wall at least a handful of times. It's just going to happen. No, at some point in here, I'm going to kind of show you what... Yeah, it's after I complete lap 34. You get to kind of see what happens when things go wrong. I end up... I realized that kind of mid-turn, I just kind of went to see how it was going to play out. I didn't get the second apex like I wanted to, and I felt like I was going to catch the wall off of turn 2, and I end up catching it. And the way it bounces me off, I stayed in the gas maybe a little bit more than I should have once I hit the wall, but it ends up blowing the motors. That's an example of how poorly it can actually go. At this point, I'm 10 laps in. I'm going to kind of go slow here so you can kind of see. So this is about where the wall starts bending out. You can kind of see it here. And that's literally where I start lifting and braking. And I get it 50, 60% brake. And I'm riding it a fair amount here. I'm still kind of trail braking here, easing out of it now. Then kind of where this banner, South Cafe or whatever the hell it says, South Carolina Parks, is where I am completely off the brake. Well, and then I kind of commit a little bit more to it, but you see I'm still not in the throttle. And then like right before this Darlington on the wall is where I pick up the throttle. And then once I pick it up, I'm still only 50% or so, gradually increasing it, kind of riding here at 50, 60%, back down a little bit, kind of hovering in there. It's not until, yeah, I mean, I'm almost off the turn here before I completely commit to the throttle. And this just gets later and later as you get further into a run. Let's see where it is for turn 1 where I'm lifting. Kind of consistent. That's pretty much where I was doing it for the big opening laps. And I don't take it as down close to the line as I could. You could run this a little bit more aggressively, but that's kind of, your results may vary. You're still taking it out to the wall, you're still partial throttle, and then you're going to lift a little bit to help get it to turn, to get it down to the bottom before you commit. This is going to be the last lap I actually successfully complete. Coming off a 2 this next lap, you're going to see what happens when you don't do it right. So I hit the entry right. I drifted out to the wall properly. You see how I'm not getting up as high to the wall? I'm kind of a little bit flatter in the turn. So when you keep it flatter, you don't get as good of an arc off the turn, and I don't get it to this bottom apex here. I'm kind of mid-track. I get it a little bit closer, but at this point I thought, okay, I'm potentially going to hit this wall. I still stayed in the throttle. I shouldn't have. I should have probably just completely bailed on the throttle. And at this point I realized, okay, yeah, I'm not making this turn. So I'm going to back it up so you can watch it full speed. Very minor. I caught it right at the end of the safer barrier, but it doesn't take much. You can see what it looks like from exterior. So I literally catch it as the safer barrier is going away, and it kind of bounces me, and I hook into the outside wall after I bounce it, and then even if I had locked the brakes up once I made contact with the wall, I mean, you're going 160. You're not going to get it the trajectory it sends me on right here going 160. Even if I lock it down, I'm going to hit the pound the wall. So just kind of long for the ride at that point. I mean, that hit there blew my engine. So I think that's it. Definitely provide some feedback or ask some questions if you have it, but hopefully this video helps a little bit.